You have a friend. You've had them for years, maybe. You know their coffee order, their family drama, the name of the person who broke their heart in 2019. And somewhere underneath all that familiarity, there is a feeling you keep pushing down, a quiet, persistent discomfort that surfaces after certain conversations, after certain silences, after the specific way they responded to your good news last month. You haven't named it. Naming it would make it real. So you keep it vague, keep it manageable, keep telling yourself that friendships are complicated and nobody is perfect, and you're probably being too sensitive. Carl Jung had a word for the thing you're doing. He called it the persona, the socially acceptable story we tell about our relationships, carefully maintained to avoid the discomfort of seeing them clearly. We construct personas not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. We decide who someone is, we build a version of them that we can live with, and then we defend that version against any incoming evidence that contradicts it. Which means the greatest obstacle to seeing a false friend clearly is almost never a lack of evidence. It's the story you've already decided to believe about them. Here is the thing that makes this genuinely difficult, and I want to be precise about this rather than vague. Real friendship and false friendship feel almost identical in the early stages. Both involve warmth, shared history, laughter, the intimacy of being known. The difference only becomes visible under specific conditions, and those conditions are almost always the conditions that matter most. Adversity, growth, genuine need. These are the moments that reveal the architecture of a relationship, whether it was built to hold you or built to hold a version of you that was convenient for someone else. Seneca understood this with a clarity that centuries haven't dulled. He wrote that before you share anything important with a person, you must first determine whether they can be trusted with it. And the only way to determine that, the only real test, is to observe what they do with what you've already shared. Not what they say about loyalty, what they do with your vulnerabilities, what they do with your secrets, what they do with your wins. The first signal that you are dealing with a false friend is what I want to call the gossip mirror. A person who brings you the private details of other people's lives with enthusiasm and regularity is showing you something precise about their character. They are showing you that information, for them, is currency. It is traded for connection, for entertainment, for social positioning. And if information is currency, then your information is also currency. The same mouth that delivers other people's secrets to you is also delivering your secrets somewhere else. This is not a cynical observation. This is a structural one. If someone has learned that sharing private things generates warmth and closeness, they will apply that pattern everywhere, including to you. Jung would say this person is operating from an unexamined shadow. The compulsion to gossip is almost never about the content of the gossip itself. It is about a deeper need for connection that hasn't found a more honest expression. The gossiper bonds through shared knowledge of other people's failings, other people's embarrassments, other people's private lives, because genuine vulnerability feels too risky. It is intimacy without exposure, and the cost of that arrangement is that you are never quite safe inside it. You will know you've correctly identified this pattern when you notice that conversations with this person consistently involve the private details of people who aren't in the room. Not processing a difficult situation once, but routinely, hungrily, as the primary mode of connection. And when you imagine sharing something genuinely vulnerable with them, your body gives you the answer before your mind does. Something tightens. Something hesitates. That hesitation is data. The second signal is what psychology calls selective reliability. This is the pattern where someone is consistently present and engaged during the pleasant, the easy, the socially rewarding moments of your life, and consistently absent, suddenly busy, or strangely distant during the difficult ones. Fair weather loyalty, it's sometimes called, but that name makes it sound more benign than it is. Because what selective reliability actually reveals is the precise thing that someone values in you. If they appear when things are going well, they value the experience of being around a person who is doing well. When things are hard, that experience is no longer available, so neither are they. The Stoics had a framework for this that is worth understanding carefully. They distinguished between people who love you and people who love what they get from being around you. The first group stays when the circumstances change. The second group is bonded not to you, but to a particular quality of experience you were providing. When you stop providing it, because you're struggling, because you're going through something hard, because you need something rather than offering something, the bond weakens. Not because they decided to abandon you, because the thing they were actually attached to is no longer there. There is a specific variation of this pattern that deserves its own attention. It is the friend who disappears not when things get hard, but when things get good. When you get the promotion, when the relationship finally works, when the project succeeds, suddenly they are less available. The calls become shorter. The energy is slightly different. This is the inverse of fair weather friendship, and in some ways, it is more disorienting because you are experiencing a good thing, and the withdrawal feels inexplicable. What's actually happening is what Aristotle identified as competitive friendship, a relationship that was unconsciously organized around a particular power balance, and your growth has disrupted that balance. You were more comfortable to be close to when you were slightly below your potential. Robert Dunbar, the anthropologist, whose research on social cognition has transformed how we understand friendship, found that humans have a cognitive capacity for approximately 5 genuinely close relationships at any given time. 5. The relationships that require real emotional investment, real vulnerability, real presence. Every false friend occupying space in that circle is displacing someone who could actually be there. This is not abstract. Every conversation you have with someone who doesn't genuinely see you is a conversation you aren't having with someone who would. You will know you've been in a pattern of selective reliability when you realize that you can predict, with accuracy, who will show up for your hardest moments. And the friend you've been protecting in your mind, the one whose absence you've been excusing, is not on that list. When you stop making excuses for their absence and simply observe what it tells you about the architecture of what you have, that clarity, uncomfortable as it is the beginning of something more honest. The third signal is the one that takes the longest to see because it is delivered so softly, so plausibly, so wrapped in the language of care that you almost always mistake it for honesty. I call it the backhanded witness. This is the person who consistently reframes your achievements in ways that slightly reduce them. Not dramatically, not with obvious malice, just a degree, just enough. That's impressive. I didn't think you had it in you. You did really well, especially considering how nervous you usually get. That's great news. I mean, it wasn't exactly the most competitive process, was it? Each of these statements, taken alone, sounds like something a person could say without ill intent. Taken together, over months and years, they form a pattern. And the pattern is this: your wins are consistently met with a contextualizing statement that shrinks them. Your confidence in their presence consistently operates below what you feel when you are alone. You start editing before you share, pre-reducing your enthusiasm, pre-qualifying your excitement, because some part of you already knows that the response will land slightly wrong, and you'd rather manage that in advance then feel it in real time. Jung called the mechanism behind this projection. The backhanded witness is someone who has not made peace with the gap between where they are and where they believed they would be. Your growth makes that gap visible. And because the gap is painful, the unconscious solution is to reduce your growth to a size that makes the gap manageable. They are not doing this to you. They are doing it for themselves. Understanding that doesn't make the pattern less costly, but it removes the possibility of taking it personally. And more importantly, it removes the confusion. You are not imagining it. There is a pattern. It has a mechanism. And that mechanism has nothing to do with your actual worth. The fourth signal is what I want to call the one-way current. Relationships have a flow, energy, attention, emotional investment moving between two people. In a genuine friendship, that current flows in both directions with reasonable consistency over time. Not perfectly balanced in every moment. Life doesn't work that way, but balanced across the arc of the relationship. With the one-way current, you are consistently the one who initiates. You are the one who remembers. You are the one who follows up, who checks in, who notices when something is off and asks about it. They receive all of this naturally, as if it is simply what's available. And when you need the current to flow the other way, when you are struggling, when you need to be heard, when you need someone to notice without being told, the current slows to almost nothing. What makes this particularly hard to see clearly is that when you finally do pull back, when you stop initiating, stop following up, stop being so reliably available, the relationship often simply stops. There are no calls, no check-ins, no curiosity about where you went. The silence on their end confirms what the pattern was always showing you. The relationship existed in direct proportion to your investment in it. Remove your investment, and you discover there was nothing holding the other side up. This is not friendship. This is a service you have been providing to someone who never asked whether the arrangement worked for you. And the reason it continued as long as it did is almost certainly something worth examining in yourself. Because people who consistently find themselves in one-way relationships are usually people for whom giving feels safer than receiving, for whom being needed feels more manageable than being vulnerable, for whom the one-way current, exhausting as it is, at least provides a role, a clear function, a measurable way to belong. Jung called this the helper's wound, and the false friend, without knowing it, is the perfect structure for that wound to hide inside. The fifth signal is the apology that isn't one. Every relationship involves moments of friction, misunderstanding, moments where someone causes harm and needs to acknowledge it. What distinguishes a genuine friend from a false one in these moments is not whether they apologize. It's the architecture of the apology. A genuine apology acknowledges what happened, takes responsibility for the specific harm, and demonstrates some understanding of why it mattered to you. A false apology does something structurally different. It apologizes for your feelings rather than for the action. I'm sorry you felt that way. It deflects into explanation. I was stressed. You know how I get. It minimizes. I didn't think you'd take it like that. It quickly pivots to their own pain. It hurts me that you're upset. None of these responses are acknowledgments. They are defenses wearing the costume of acknowledgments. And what they reveal, consistently, is someone for whom being wrong is too threatening to actually sit with. Someone whose need to be seen as a good person overrides their capacity to genuinely reckon with harm they've caused. You can forgive this as a human limitation. It is a very common one, while also recognizing that a friendship built with someone who cannot apologize genuinely is a friendship where you will absorb a great deal of harm over time with very little genuine repair. The Stoics were precise about what to do with this information. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you cannot change what other people are. You can only change your response to it and your decisions about proximity. He wasn't advocating coldness. He was advocating clarity. See people as they are, not as you need them to be. Extend warmth without extending access. Love without depending. This is not a cynical position. It is a deeply honest one. And it is the only position that allows genuine friendship to exist at all. Because genuine friendship requires that you see the other person clearly enough to actually choose them. Here is what connects all 5 of these signals. Every single one of them involves a version of the same fundamental transaction. You provide something: safety, attention, emotional labor, the experience of being around someone who is doing well. And in return, you receive something that looks like friendship but functions like a performance of it. The gossip mirror offers you intimacy without trust. Selective reliability offers you presence without commitment. The backhanded witness offers you engagement without genuine support. The one-way current offers you connection without reciprocity. The false apology offers you resolution without accountability. In each case, you are receiving a replica of what you actually need. And now the question worth sitting with, the one that requires more honesty than the others, is why. Why did you accept the replica? What in you found it preferable to the discomfort of demanding the real thing? Because people who consistently surround themselves with false friends are almost never doing so randomly. They are doing so because something in the architecture of genuine friendship feels more threatening than the architecture of the replica. Genuine friendship requires that you be seen, really seen, not just the parts you curate, not just the version of you that is easy to love, but the uncertain, unfinished, complicated whole of you. And for many people, that level of exposure carries a risk that the nervous system, somewhere below conscious awareness, has decided is too large. The work, then, is not simply to remove false friends from your life, though that matters. The work is to ask what you were protecting by keeping them there, what the one-way current was saving you from, what the false apologies were allowing you to avoid. Because the same inner landscape that welcomed the replica will, unless it's examined, simply generate new replicas to replace the ones you removed. New people, same architecture, different name, same 2 a.m. feeling. Epictetus wrote that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your inner commitments, not your external circumstances. The commitment to be genuinely seen, genuinely known, genuinely chosen, that commitment, made honestly and held with patience, is what eventually makes a real friendship possible. Not by changing other people, by changing what you're willing to accept as enough. If you have someone in your life right now who has been holding space that a real friend should occupy, someone who recognizes themselves in what you've just heard, this might be exactly the moment to let them sit with that recognition too.